15 sandwiches. 15 things you could have ordered at a Woolworth's lunch counter, or a Schrafft's, or a drugstore soda fountain in 1955, sitting on a stool while a cook made it 10 feet away. The lunch counter was a specific American institution, and the sandwiches it served were specific to it. When the counters closed, the sandwiches went with them. Some of these you can still make at home. The place to eat them is gone. Number 1 is the one that was ordered every day by women who never wrote down the recipe. Number 15, the date nut bread with cream cheese. The date nut bread sandwich existed in a category the 1950s lunch counter understood, and the modern menu does not. The sweet, savory bread option. Small, dark loaves of date nut bread made with actual dates and actual walnuts, dense enough to hold a filling without compressing, spread with cream cheese and served at the lunch counters of Horn and Hardert's Automats and Schrafft's across the Northeast. The loaves were baked in-house at most establishments, which meant the recipe was the property of the kitchen and not written down anywhere that survived. Date nut bread also existed in commercial form, sold in cylindrical cans, which produced a circular slice. Neither version is on any lunch counter today because neither version has a lunch counter to be on. The sandwich requires no unusual ingredients. It requires a counter. Number 14, the Western sandwich. The Western sandwich was the lunch counter's answer to the question of what to do with an egg at noon. A whole egg, beaten and poured onto a flat top with diced green pepper, diced white onion, and diced ham, scrambled together until just set, folded, and placed between 2 slices of white toast. Every ingredient is simple. Every execution depends on the flat top temperature and the cook's timing, which cannot be written in a recipe with any precision. The name was Western in some places and Denver in others, a debate running since at least the 1940s without resolution. The sandwich still appears on some diner menus, but the version made at a Woolworth's counter in 1954, on that specific flat top by a cook who had made 500 of them that month, is gone. Number 13, the broiled open-face ham and Swiss. The broiled open-face was the quick lunch, produced in under 3 minutes for someone with 30 minutes before they needed to be back at their desk. 1 slice of rye bread on a small oven-proof plate, a spread of mustard, 2 slices of ham, 1 slice of Swiss laid over the ham, placed under the broiler until the cheese blistered and browned at the edges. The result was hot through, the mustard sharpened by the heat, the Swiss reaching a state between melted and toasted that it cannot achieve any other way. The sandwich required a broiler close to the counter and a cook paying attention because 10 seconds past done is burned. Most modern sandwich prep does not include a broiler close to the counter. That is why this version no longer exists. Number 12, the egg salad open face. The egg salad at a lunch counter was not made from a recipe written down anywhere that survives. It was made from habit. Hard-boiled eggs chopped and mixed with mayonnaise, celery salt, a little dry mustard, sometimes sweet pickle relish, spread on white toast that had been allowed to cool so it would not soften the filling. Open-faced, paprika dusted across the top from a shaker on the prep counter, served with a dill pickle spear and potato chips beside it on the plate. The egg salad formula at Woolworth's was different from the formula at the Kresge's across the street, and a regular who ate it both knew the difference without being able to explain it. The version a specific cook made on a specific Tuesday in 1957 is gone. All of those specific Tuesdays are gone. Number 11. The club sandwich, drugstore version. The drugstore club sandwich was 3 decks with a specific architecture. Bottom slice of white toast, mayonnaise, turkey sliced thin, bacon cooked until done but not brittle, Second slice of toast is the middle deck, plain. Lettuce leaf and tomato slice on that. Third slice of toast to close. 4 frilled toothpicks, sliced into 4 triangles. The turkey was always turkey and never chicken, a distinction that sounds minor and is not. The bacon was not cooked until brittle, because brittle bacon breaks through the bread on the first bite, and the drugstore cook had made enough of these to know that. The version at the lunch counter was inexpensive, consistent, and built with attention to the details that determined whether the thing held together. That combination is not the standard at the places where club sandwiches still appear. Number 10. The deviled ham on soft white. Underwood deviled ham has been sold in small tins with a red devil on the label since 1868, one of the oldest branded foods in the country. At the lunch counter, it was not served straight from the tin. The cook mixed it with sweet pickle relish and a small amount of mustard, which extended the filling and added texture contrast. Spread thick on 2 slices of soft white bread, untoasted. The softness was the point, the filling compressing gently between the slices. The deviled ham sandwich cost less than anything else on the menu and was ordered without embarrassment because in 1955, there was nothing embarrassing about eating deviled ham for lunch. The tin is still sold. The context in which eating it at a counter was ordinary is not. Number 9. The pimento cheese open face. Pimento cheese is still made in the American South and sold in grocery stores in plastic containers, and it does not taste like the pimento cheese made fresh in a lunch counter kitchen in 1955. The reason is that commercially made pimento cheese is engineered for shelf life, and the fresh version was engineered for nothing except tasting correct. Sharp cheddar grated by hand, mixed with cream cheese softened at room temperature, drained pimento peppers, a small amount of mayonnaise, black pepper, sometimes a pinch of cayenne, spread on a slice of white bread and placed open-faced under the broiler for 2 minutes until the edges of the cheese began to brown. The sandwich required fresh pimento cheese made that morning, which required a cook willing to make it that morning. The grocery store version, in its sealed plastic container, does not contain a cook. That is the entire difference. Number 8. The creamed chicken on toast points. Creamed chicken on toast points was the most formal item on an informal menu. A thick cream sauce made from chicken stock, cream, and flour, with diced cooked chicken folded in, poured hot over 2 slices of white bread, toasted and cut diagonally. Each triangle positioned so the points faced outward from the center of the plate. The toast points were not decoration. They stayed crispier longer than flat-cut bread because the diagonal cut exposed more crust and less soft interior. The dish appeared on menus simply as creamed chicken and was ordered by women eating lunch between stops on a shopping trip, at counters in department stores that understood their customer. The counters that served it are closed. The shopping trips they were built around have changed entirely. Number 7. The cucumber on cream cheese. The cucumber sandwich at a lunch counter was the lunch counter version of a tea sandwich. The tea sandwich is party food. The lunch counter version was a full plate, white bread, crust trimmed, cream cheese spread across each slice, thin rounds of English cucumber laid in a single layer, pressed together and cut. The cucumber was always the long, seedless English variety, because seeds in a standard cucumber release water and soften the bread within minutes. The lunch counter cook knew this from experience, not from a food science class. The sandwich was associated specifically with women eating lunch at department stores and at establishments like Schrafft's that understood their clientele. The crust trimming is the detail that places this sandwich precisely in 1955. No one trims crusts at the places that still exist. Number 6. The sardine and raw onion on dark rye. The sardine sandwich required a customer who knew what they were ordering and a counter that served working-class clientele who expected it on the menu. Norwegian sardines in oil, drained, laid across dark rye spread with mustard, rings of raw white onion over the sardines, the second slice pressed down. The oil transferred into the rye over the minutes between making and eating, changing the texture in a way that was specific and intentional. The sardine sandwich cost almost nothing and carried a person through the afternoon in a way a cucumber sandwich did not. It was ordered at counters in port cities and in neighborhoods with large Scandinavian immigrant populations, and at any counter that stocked the tin. It is unthinkable now as a restaurant item. In 1955, it required no thought at all. Number 5. The liverwurst and dill pickle. Braunschweiger is the soft, spreadable form of liverwurst made from pork liver seasoned with onion and spices, and its presence on American lunch counter menus through the 1950s reflects where German and Eastern European immigrants had settled in the century before. Cities where German Americans had settled had lunch counters that served Braunschweiger spread across dark pumpernickel, layered with thin-sliced dill pickles and sometimes raw onion. The spreadability was the essential quality. Sliced liverwurst is a different eating experience from spread liverwurst. The German delicatessen tradition that made this sandwich common has contracted significantly since the 1950s, and the lunch counter format that normalized it for people outside that tradition has closed entirely. Braunschweiger still sits in grocery store deli cases behind plastic wrap with no counter to serve it from. Number 4. The tomato aspic open face. Tomato aspic is a savory jelly made from tomato juice, gelatin, and spices poured into a mold, refrigerated until firm, then unmolded and sliced cold. At the lunch counter, one of those slices went on white toast spread with mayonnaise, garnished with a leaf of Boston lettuce. It required the aspic to have been made the previous afternoon, which meant the kitchen was thinking about the next day's lunch service the evening before. The flavor was cold, tomatoey, slightly gelatinous at the edges, a texture the 1950s cook understood and that the current restaurant menu does not accommodate. Aspic fell out of fashion in the 1970s as the post-war gelatin culture faded. The recipe is findable in any mid-century cookbook. The appetite for it in any commercial kitchen has been gone for 50 years. Number 3. The watercress butter. The watercress butter sandwich was white bread, thin sliced, crust removed, spread with softened, salted butter, fresh watercress pressed firmly into the butter, the second slice laid on top. Nothing else. No mayonnaise, no mustard, no protein, no other vegetables. The peppery bite of the watercress and the salt and fat of the butter were the complete flavor of the sandwich, and they were enough, which the 1950s lunch counter customer understood and which takes some adjustment to understand today. Watercress is a peppery aquatic plant that grew in cold running water and was sold fresh at markets throughout the country through the mid-20th century in a way it no longer reliably is. The sandwich was served at Schrafft's in New York and at the lunch counters of upscale department stores in cities that still had upscale department stores with lunch counters. The watercress supply to those cities contracted, the establishments closed. Both losses arrived in the same decades and left the same gap. Number 2. The tongue on rye. Beef tongue was a common item at American lunch counters through the 1950s, ordered without ceremony by the customers who preferred it. And those customers didn't think of it as organ meat, they thought of it as Tuesday lunch. The tongue was braised whole in seasoned liquid until tender, a process that takes 3 to 4 hours, then chilled overnight and sliced thin against the grain. The sliced tongue on dark rye bread with brown mustard was always served cold, never heated, and the meat was dense and smooth in a way that resembles no other cut of beef, because no other cut is constructed the same way by the animal's anatomy. The tongue sandwich still exists at Jewish delicatessens in a handful of American cities. It does not exist at the general-purpose lunch counter, which no longer exists either. 2 extinctions arrived together, and neither one announced itself. Number 1. The olive nut. The olive nut sandwich was on the menu at Woolworth's lunch counters across the country, at Kresge's, at Schrafft's, at the lunch counter of virtually every department store that had one, which in 1955 was most of them. Cream cheese, softened and mixed with chopped pimento-stuffed green olives and chopped walnuts, spread on soft white bread. That is the complete recipe. The combination sounds wrong to anyone who has never tasted it, and tastes correct to anyone who has. And there is no way to explain the gap between those two experiences to someone who hasn't crossed it. The salt from the olives, the richness of the cream cheese, the slight resistance of the walnut, a balance the ingredient list does not predict. It was the women's sandwich, ordered at lunch with a friend without consulting the menu, at a counter where ordering it required no explanation because it was on every menu and everyone knew what it was. Woolworth's closed its food service in 1997. Schrafft's was gone by 1983. The olive nut sandwich does not require a restaurant to make, it requires a counter. The counters are closed, and the people who knew to order it without looking at the menu are becoming fewer every year. 15 sandwiches. The counters they were served at operated on a logic that has no equivalent today. The cook behind the counter, the customer on the stool, and a menu priced for someone who needed to eat lunch on a budget without eating standing up. The lunch counter was not a restaurant. It was something between a kitchen table and a diner, and the food it served lived in exactly that space. If you ate any of these, leave a comment. Tell us which counter, which city, what year. Subscribe if you are new here, and a like helps other people find this.